Once upon a time, there was a great country in the western part of the world. A great king was ruling that country. All the people living in that country were happy. During his reign, the natural resources were protected and utilized in an excellent manner. He has two sons. Both are teenagers. Seeing the country's natural resources, the country's neighbors wanted to conquer the country. They were waiting for that time. A few months later, the king's health failed. So, the king decided to quickly select the next king. The first prince wanted to be a king. But, the second prince had no thought of becoming a king. The king decided to make the second prince is a next king. Because the first prince was angry and impatient. So the king decided to make the second prince is a next king. Because he was kind and intelligent. But this decision was not accepted by the first prince. This fight continued. A few weeks later the king died. Now he had to decide who would be the next king. So the two had an argument. "I will rule," said the first prince. The second prince said that, "You cannot rule this country properly. Because, you are angry and impatient." This fight could not properly focus on the people and the country. Hence the economy of the country started to decline. Then we will divide the country into two and rule separately. After 2 years, they decided that, whoever was ruling their region best, would rule the entire country. The country was divided into two. Due to the partition of the country, the strength of the country decreased. The time the neighboring king had been waiting for came. The second prince is wise and kind. So, if war is waged on the first prince, the second king will definitely come to his aid. So, the neighboring kings decided to wage war on the second prince first. Several neighboring kings decided to join forces and wage war on the area where the second prince was ruling. In a few days, the war started. When he calls his brother for help, he says, "You must defend your country." "I can't help you," he said. Therefore, the second prince felt that his territory could not be saved because of the enemy's strength. And, if it happens now, there will be more loss of people's life and property. 2 years later, the second prince decided to join his brother and achieve the lost territories. So, he conceded defeat to the kings of the opposite country. "Do not persecute me and my country peoples. He told you to have this part yourself." A few days later, the second prince went to his country to meet his brother. His brother said, "You have no place in my country because you fought for your part and did not win. Go away from here." The second prince said, "I have brought you a message. All the neighboring kings are trying to get together and conquer our country. When our country is divided into two, they have made a plan that everyone should unite and won our country. Buy it the first conquerors of my part." This message came from a friend of mine. Next, there are definitely more chances to start a war on your territory. So, we both will recover the lost part from each other. After then we decide who should rule the country. The first prince said, "I will take care of that invasion. I have the forces and tactics needed to stop that invasion. You are a failure. You have no place in my country. Get out of where you are." For a few days, as the second son had said, the neighboring countries united and waged war to win the area where the first prince was. That first prince also started preparing for war. In a few days, the war started. The strength of the opponent is very high, the first son thought. The battle was raging. 3 years later, the war began to wind down. The strength of the first prince's army began to decline. Eventually, the neighboring kings took over the first prince's territory. During the intervening period of this war, the second prince lived in an ashram in the southern part of the world. Many sages and Buddhas lived there then. Those Buddhas in a few days people living in a part of this world are going to experience great bliss. They said that a deadly disease is going to hit the people living in one part of the world hard. They said that we are all working together to find the medicines for it. So this second prince started doing the work along with them. A few years later the country was in the hands of neighboring countries. Many people who were working with this second prince to find the medicine died. As those Buddhas predicted, the disease began to spread in the western part of the world. Millions of children, adults and women died from this disease. The kings and palace servants who lived in that country suffered from this disease and were in a very dangerous condition. This news came to the knowledge of the second prince. As he had the medicine for this disease, he quickly started traveling towards that area. News spread across the country that his brother had died in the battle. He went and started saving everyone by using medicine for the disease. He also taught everyone about the method of preparing medicine for this disease. When he met the king, a few months later, he did not say anything about who he was. The king asked, "Who are you?" He said, "I am a doctor. I heard news that a deadly disease is spreading here." The king asked, "Do you want anything?" "Whatever you ask, I am ready to give you, ask whatever you want." He said, "I want nothing from me. Give me permission to live in this country, that's enough." The king said to stay generously. Then he started living in that country, and asked the villagers where his brother's tomb was. His mausoleum was erected outside the town. He stood in front of that tomb, and shed tears in front of that tomb. These tears are said. Humans have lost more by not being united than they have gained by being united. An example of that is in our history.